All right. So I think we should go ahead and get started. So hey everyone, welcome to the first I Am Tech Oregon interview of 2021, sponsored by First Tech Federal Credit Union. Before we begin our event today, we want to acknowledge the indigenous land on which TAO is headquartered. The Portland metro area rests on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. And we take this opportunity to reflect and thank the original caretakers of this land. And as our friends at PDX WIT say, genocide is a complicated historical incident that can't be summed up in a minute-long intro at an event. But it's our hope, however, to draw attention to the opportunities that exist when it comes to acknowledging the history and supporting the future of Indigenous Oregonians. I'm Ruthie, TAO's Marketing and Regional Programs Coordinator, and I use she, her pronouns. And I have the privilege of moderating the 2021 I Am Tech Oregon series, where we get to hear from a member, a TAO member once a month. And I'm really excited to amplify the stories of some of our amazing members this year. Today, I'm joined by two of TAO's rockstar staff, Justin Martinez and Kara Snow. As many of you know, Justin is a pro at making sure all of our events run smoothly. Kara's here to keep us hyped up in the chat. She's all about building community and accentuating awesome points that you make. So please give shout outs to Kara in the chat, and we love to kind of keep up conversation there. I think we're all Zoom etiquette experts at this point, but just in case, here are a few of our guidelines before we get started. All of the participants have been muted. We ask that you stay on mute unless a TAO staff member unmutes you, calls on you to talk. You may ask or respond to questions in the chat box publicly or privately by directing your message to Kara. And we know how much she likes to connect with people, and she'll be monitoring the chat box to make sure that your questions get answered. And if you're feeling stoked or want to hype our guest up, we encourage you to use the participant icon on your screen to applaud or give a thumbs up. This half hour is going to speed by, but don't worry, because we've allocated time for Q&A at the end, and we're going to do live Q&A using an app called Mentimeter. So you can access the Q&A by scanning this QR code on the screen, or there's a voting code that you can use by going to menti.com. And don't worry, we're going to reshare all of those access details at the end when we get to the Q&A. Please engage with us on social media during this call and throughout the day. Monitoring TAO's social media is part of my job, and you'll make my day if you share a takeaway from one of our events. Just start a conversation there. And now, without any further ado, the reason we're all here, it's my pleasure to welcome Ibrahim Balde, co-founder and creator of Blackbook University. Hey, Ibrahim.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. As Ruthie mentioned, my name is Ibrahim Balde. I go by the he series, so he is. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So we're going to start off, as I already mentioned, you're the co-founder and creator of Blackbook. And I'm wondering if you can start us off just by sharing a little bit more about Blackbook and how you became the co-founder of a startup.
Absolutely. And to start off, I'd say our journey with Blackbook is really rooted in our experience as Black students, specifically Black students at UC Berkeley. And for us, really, it's almost like this dualistic nature of being really proud and having a lot of pride for being at UC Berkeley, but then also being kind of like, okay, it wasn't the best experience. And so for us, the 2018 USC Race and Equity Report really came as a kind of, it shocked us all on our campus, because it really validated a lot of the things that we were experiencing, whether it's the isolation in classroom, often being the only person of color, we felt that it not only challenged what our kind of role was in our community, but also encouraged us to kind of tackle that problem through a greater lens. And so for me and the group that I work with, we kind of came together with the goal of really understanding how to reimagine our experience at UC Berkeley. The USC Race and Equity Report stated that our campus was the second worst for Black students in California.
Wow.
And for us, despite being completely embraced and immersed in this kind of community of Black excellence on our campus, it hurt to hear that we weren't, we weren't successful or we weren't welcoming. And so we really wanted to challenge that. And so in 2019, a group of about 5 of my closest colleagues came together using frameworks of design thinking and innovation kind of mindset to tackle the problem. And as a result, we came up with Blackbook. And where we are now is essentially getting really close to our launch. This is our beta test launch for the Berkeley community. And we're excited to be able to kind of produce a product and have it ready in the next week.
That's awesome. I didn't realize it was launching that soon. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you talked, when we talked a little bit about this last month, if y'all haven't seen, we did there was a Portland Business Journal article featuring Blackbook, and Ibrahim kind of tells a story there. So I just was wondering, Ibrahim, like, can you talk a little bit about where you hope Blackbook will go? Like,
Absolutely.
you're launching now, but like, when you look ahead, like years from now, like, what do you hope?
Yeah, for sure.
Be doing?
Absolutely. And I feel like kind of going back to the point of like feeling isolated in a classroom and whatnot, I think the ultimate goal is to have a platform that allows students to feel welcomed and embraced the moment that they touch base on a college campus. For us at UC Berkeley, there's over 32 student organizations, and oftentimes you kind of feel polarized and you feel lost with all those different options. But if there was a centralized space where you can immerse yourself in that community of support, we feel that we can kind of take away a lot of those, that second guessing, that questioning of your belonging. And that's kind of the long-term vision, is really having a platform dedicated to making Black students feel like they belong on college campuses. And yeah.
And then is there like a professional side of that too? Like, how do you see that supporting Black students as they like transition off a college campus, or as far as like networking goes?
Absolutely, for sure. And like, I think in the article, we talked a bit about legacy trajectory and not necessarily having the guidance or mentorship to understand what career you want to get into, or maybe you want to go to a grad school program, or you want to get in touch with a particular network. All in all, what we hope to empower is that notion of peer-to-peer connection, and taking it to the next level would be directly addressing some of those professional aspects that you kind of mentioned, right? What does recruiting look like, and how can we reimagine how college recruiters are finding and funneling Black talent? One thing that our team kind of hoped to tackle was the pipeline problem in itself. A lot of the times when people go to school, actually pretty much anyone going to school, you're going to school to get a job, or you're going to school to kind of better your life. And what we found is that through that entire pipeline, from college recruitment, from like getting in the door to leaving, there are different points or inflection points where students feel like they're not supported. And what we want to do is be able to have unique touch points to support students throughout that entire process, whether it's coming in and then feeling like you have a community of support, finding a mentor who can kind of guide you and support you in finding a career, or even finding a employee network to support you once you do get into a company or whatnot. That's what we hope to support holistically.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, you're like launching at Berkeley, right? Happening this week. What's your plans for like how you're going to expand as far as like working with other colleges and universities around the country? Do you think,
Absolutely.
do you see this as being like a nationwide thing? Is it going to go international? Like what are your dreams?
I hope so. I hope the goal is, but I really think right now we're focused on trying to prove out our assumptions. I think with the Berkeley model, it's very unique to Berkeley's campus. But when we think about scalability, we really want to understand how the platform itself will be existing in communities like maybe PSU or communities down in SoCal. In the long run, what we are in, actually in the short run, we hope to kind of pivot after this iteration to kind of work with the UC system, try to get this platform out to the 8 different UCs across California. And after that, I think we'd have a lot of data points and a lot of information to work with in order to kind of, you know, use the tool and scale it to places like here in Oregon. But ultimately, yes, I do see it as like a nationwide thing. I think that it's important that people of color and Black people specifically try to embrace technology kind of geared and designed for them as a means to challenge what I kind of see sometimes as like performative diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. If we kind of cultivate spaces that empower our betterment, we can take steps towards really like controlling those conversations or being the masters of those conversations, if that makes sense, really kind of guiding how we are supported. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So awesome. I'm curious, like, as you're entering the tech industry, so someone who's kind of a recent grad getting started, do you see yourself represented among your peers or leadership among startup founders?
Yeah, to be honest, when I first started trying to break into the industry, I didn't necessarily see myself in it. And I think the reason for that is because I just didn't know what was out there. And so I first want to say that going back to this notion of legacy trajectories and having kind of an understanding of how to navigate college, I didn't have that. And I think a lot of people of color, a lot of people like me who are like, I'm not a first generation college student, but a lot of people like me are first generation college students. They don't have that guidance. They don't have that structure to get them through or to, you know, teach them how to break in. But I was fortunate enough in my 2 years through mentorship to kind of find that and experience that. And in my first internship at Bank of America, I had a manager and he was a black male. And in that time, he told me the one thing that no one can ever take away from you is your intelligence. And like, no matter, like, you're gonna always feel isolated, you'll be alone in a lot of times, but what someone can't take away is your intelligence. And I think that that's what we hope to promote within Blackbook is like this, like education, Black excellence in academia and professionalism. This is for you, and this is a space for you to see yourself in that. So it's, you know, yeah, you belong essentially. And also I was fortunate enough to experience a conference called Afrotech. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Like it's so this company called Blavity, which is like maybe like a tech media group, a Black tech media group. They host an annual conference called Afrotech. And if you can imagine, it was just like a big convention center of like the brightest and boldest minds within tech that are, you know, for Black people or they are Black people. And so it was like 2 years in a row, it's a big convention center with a whole bunch of innovators and change makers and whatnot. And I got to sit there and experience that. And for me as like a sophomore, I think it kind of transformed my thinking as to be like, this isn't for you. No, it is for you. It exists, and it exists every year. And so for me, and even through Blackbook, I think our goal is to kind of recreate that feeling all the time. It's almost like a like a Wakanda. It's like, you know, we're really passionate about who we are and like the future that we're trying to create essentially. And it's here. You can't like ignore it essentially.
Yeah. I mean, that's, yes, like seeing that representation and how that like sort of transformed, you know, if you don't see anyone around you doing something, like, why would you think that that's a space for you or a job for you or an opportunity for you?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we ask everyone who comes on this series about imposter syndrome. So I'm just curious, like, have you ever had imposter syndrome kind of starting on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say kind of trying to promote a platform specifically geared towards Black students. It's kind of tricky because a lot of people will be like, isn't that a little bit like exclusive? Aren't you kind of creating more segregation? And for me, I think that's kind of made me feel isolated in a lot of spaces, like when I pitched the idea or whatever. And so I do think that I consistently will feel imposter syndrome, but I don't think that I don't think that it's something that's going to go away, in all honesty. And I think that I've been trying to find a lot of power within myself to kind of navigate that. However, I feel most grounded when I'm kind of around a system of support, and mainly like my team, like really having a lot of individuals to rely on to support me when I don't feel at my brightest or boldest. That's been what kind of gets me through, essentially. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's really helpful. My personal opinion is that everyone experiences imposter syndrome to some degree or another. And it's been really interesting and helpful to kind of hear what helps everyone, you know, each person, because everyone has like a different, you're talking about a support network. That's
Absolutely.
powerful. Okay, so I'm curious, just like, what's your favorite thing about Blackbook, or sort of like your career, like what you're working on right now? Like, what do you love most about it?
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in Oakland, California, and like being raised in the Bay, you kind of, I guess the success of like the whole tech industry transversely affected like my community and the people around me, like leading people to be displaced and eventually my family. It's a lot of the reason why we're out here in Portland. And so for me coming into Cal, I was adamant about making that my way of kind of breaking into the industry, but really breaking in through the lens of what I know. And what I know is definitely community organizing, community activism. That's kind of what I started. That was like, when I got into Cal, I knew I could hit the ground running and kind of embrace that activist culture that Berkeley kind of promoted. And so what I love about this project is that I feel it's at the intersection between social innovation and also like really that not hard, but that trend towards like the importance of data. And then essentially just that empowerment of my identity. So I always feel like I'm, you know, the work that I'm doing always feels valid. It's not about me. It's about kind of promoting the next generation, promoting the students at UC Berkeley who are coming after me. And that feels just great. That's what I wanted to do when I came to Cal, and to leave and have this project, it's been like, whoa, okay, you're doing it.
Yeah, so you're a leader. That's awesome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. What's you know, we talk to people kind of about like what's the best career decision they've ever made. Like, what's something that you feel like kind of set you on your path, or you really reflect back on as something like positive that you did?
That's a tough question. I would say, in all honesty, being able to experience like that corporate culture with Bank of America, and even with the venture fund that I'm working with based in Berkeley, being able to experience that, and then having something that's mine, that's like personal, and like kind of using those two experiences interchangeably, like using what I learned from my professional experiences and transferring it to the project, and then trying to I guess encourage and inspire the team to learn and utilize what I've learned in my time. Essentially, I think that's been the most fulfilling thing, because I think it's the most tangible and applicable like knowledge and way to gauge like your growth, essentially being able to teach someone that and kind of utilize it in your own time. So yeah, I would say it's been a mixture of both, being able to experience like what it's like to be like an associate entry level, and then also being able to create and lead something on your own. So yeah,
I love that, like kind of translating these more sort of like corporate experiences into something that's really personal. That's cool.
Absolutely.
What about regrets or like worst decisions or something that you would go back and redo?
That's a really good question. Regret. Honestly, I would say early on, like that imposter syndrome aspect, especially getting into UC Berkeley, like I was very much a victim of my own like mindset. I felt that I didn't belong a lot of the times. One, like I came in and I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to compete with my peers. And so I definitely didn't feel as though I was worthy of doing what I wanted to do. And it took a lot to kind of find that within myself. And a lot of it was honestly just breaking that barrier, just breaking that ability to kind of communicate with people that I don't normally communicate with, or kind of get out of my comfort zone and put myself in spaces that I wouldn't normally. And that if I would have done that earlier and it kind of embraced the innovation culture, like the day I came in and had the confidence to be like, yo, you can do this, and yo, this is for you. I think that maybe Blackbook would have been here a lot earlier, and maybe would have already been here in Portland. But yeah, I would say that would be a regret, is just to kind of embrace, or like to kind of have that self belief and have that and practice that self-awareness, essentially. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more question before we launch it over to our audience for Q&A. How would your 10-year-old self react to what you do now?
He would be excited, honestly. I think for everyone, we don't even realize kind of the amount of trauma we've experienced in the past year. And for me to be in a space where I'm about 900 miles from where this project is based, kind of within the comfort of my family and whatnot, working on a project that I really, really love, and kind of in my mind, I feel like it was created before I even knew what it was. I think that 10-year-old me would be like very like proud. He'd be like, dang, you're really doing the thing. So yeah, I think that my 10-year-old self would hopefully be proud, and I think he'd be surprised that I'm here in Portland, in Oregon, but he'd be like, dude, you're doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got to remember that, right? Like sometimes I think we get like bogged down by everything that's happening in our current jobs and what we're dealing with. And then it's like, wait, take a step back, like think of all your growth, think of all the cool things you're doing, and
absolutely
how you should impress yourself. Cool. Okay. So I think Justin's going to share his screen again, and we're going to go ahead and open up to our using Mentimeter, using our live Q&A. So how this works is you can either use your phone to scan the QR code, or you can go on your browser to menti.com and you enter that code 1642478. And then that is going to allow you to, in real time, pop up some questions if you have questions for Ibrahim, anything about Blackbook, just anything that hasn't been covered so far. So we'll give people a couple seconds to scan that QR code, and then we'll see what is happening.
This is an awesome platform, Menti.
Yeah, so we've really been, doing some iteration, leveraging some different tools to make the kind of same old Zoom calls get a little bit more interesting. Hey. And I will plug we have a member mix coming up at the end of the month, where we're using a cool platform called Run the World, which like allows you to do some speed networking. Oh, cool. Okay, so first question. This is awesome. Who is your mentor right now? Or, you know, someone you look up to, a hero or a shiro?
Yeah, for sure. I would say my biggest mentor right now would probably be this person named Gary Lim. And Gary was someone who, he's been mentoring me for about 10 years now. And he's an alumni from the High School of Business. Early on, he was one of the people who kind of told me that, look, you can do it. You can go, you can do honestly whatever you set your mind to. You have the belief, the kind of the charisma, you have the mindset. And like, I think through his guidance, I really found the confidence in myself to even go to college.
Awesome.
But I think the question as to who is a hero of mine, yeah, I would say Muhammad Ali always. So I grew up pretty Islamic, and kind of that I've always been in love with his tenacity and his ability to kind of be outspoken about what he believes in. And I hope to kind of uphold that throughout my career, not to kind of deviate from like myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, what else, Justin? What's next? What are you doing? First off, remarkable work. Yeah, what are you doing to promote your brand?
Absolutely. And so for Blackbook, what we're trying to do at this moment is we have a kind of dualistic nature where the platform itself is what we're working on UC Berkeley's campus, but the larger brand is really via Instagram and social media. We're trying to curate a platform that brings information relevant to the Black experience. I know over the summer, everyone was seeing what was happening amidst the Black Lives Matter movement. But also there were things such as like that there was a day where like Black people all decided not to purchase any goods on one particular day. And the economic impact of that was super significant. It's just stories like that are just super important and super empowering to see. And we hope to kind of create a space that anyone can go to and find those type of information and stories. So.
Awesome. So I know we're bumping up against our time, so we'll do one more. And then if there are any that haven't been answered, we will send those to Ibrahim afterwards and put them out in our feedback email afterwards. So yeah, how much buy-in support do you need from UC Berkeley to launch Blackbook, and how did you go about getting that support?
Yeah, and so what we did to garner support at UC Berkeley is we partnered with an organization known as the African American Institute, our initiative, and essentially it's the chancellor's arm that is focusing on allocating like funding and support to the Black community. So we went and pitched directly to them, and they were able to give us some guidance and initial funding to support the project, and that's kind of how we got the ball rolling. But the goal now is to kind of pitch to the higher UC Board of Regents for that next step, essentially.
Cool. Thank you so much for answering. We're kind of speed rounding it there.
Yeah,
we're at our time. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to hold off those questions and we'll get them over to Ibrahim. We'll get them answered and then sent back out to folks. So we just want to encourage you. This is, like I said, a monthly event. It happens on the second Thursday of every month. This sort of cool coffee break hour where you can take a break, join us for a half hour, get to know someone from TAO, one of our amazing members. And you can join us next month. It's on February 11th when I'll be getting to know the co-founders of SAF, which is a new line concierge app. You can find information about that at techoregon.org/events. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Remember, we are all Tech Oregon. I am Tech Oregon. Happy Thursday. Wishing you all a beautiful day. Thank you so much to Ibrahim. And we are cheering for you. I think everyone in our membership is as well. We're super excited for your project. Thanks so much.
I appreciate you all. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.